Okay, my name's Nick Gray. I run Christian Middle East Watch, which in Colonel Lehrman's terms is a Congo. Christian organised NGO. I also happen to be a pastor, and when I take my watch off, it means absolutely nothing. Christian Middle East Watch is slightly unusual in that we work from within the church to put stuff outside the church to put the facts about the Middle East. So we aim for factual information and stuff that I gather from all sorts of places and put it out to mainly online publications that are secular. So we're a little bit unusual in that respect because obviously most Christian pro-Israel organisations are kind of aiming within the church. Anyway, I'm going to have to talk in headlines because I only have about 10 minutes, I think. I'm going to talk about a Christian perspective on boycotts, divestments and sanctions, otherwise known as BDS, which shortens me by about 30 seconds to call it BDS. Who knows nothing about BDS at all, or very little? Okay, some of it, so a lot of you know something about it. BDS, if we believe what they tell us, like the folk up in the church here, simply want Israel to get out of the occupation of the West Bank so that Palestine can exist. The problem is that their motivation is not just to get Israel out of the West Bank, their motivation is to destroy Israel completely. And you don't have to read too much of their literature to find that out when they talk about Israeli towns as being Palestinian towns, when they talk about, I don't know if you've ever been to any demonstrations in London, but the communist mantra that goes out is from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. Okay, so their whole motivation is actually the destruction of Israel and it's replacing with another Arab state. And they will not be happy until that happens. One banner I saw once at a demonstration in London was quite telling. It said, a Palestinian state is a good first step. Okay? So that is what they're all about. And they are targeting the church. They know that if they can get the churches and the church people and the church ministers on their side, it will boost them, it will boost their acceptance in British society. And they are targeting us, the church. There's one reason why churches like St James's have put on things like Bethlehem Unwrapped, because they've been targeted by the BDS groups. And they're after us. So really we need to be informed with facts. We need to be informed with what the reality of what is happening out there is. We need to be informed and have in the back of our minds the motivation of these BDS and delegitimization people. So when we talk about boycotts, and the BDS people talk about the boycotts, and we all know about SodaStream now and things like this, we need to realise that they actually are quite immoral in their presentation of history. They're immoral in their presentation of the present situation. The use of the words apartheid, for example, is actually an insult to people that suffered under apartheid. The accusation of Israel as a Nazi state is insulting to Holocaust survivors. Yeah, exactly, and they don't have any shame. So they are immoral in their presentation of history, their presentation of how things are now, and of course, as we just heard from Christy, of how things are in the disputed territories as well. The situation with Christians, Palestinian against Palestinian, and so on. BDS is divisive. It does not create peace, it creates division. A demonstration in London, or a television interview with Paxman, or a wall outside a church in London does not create peace, it creates division. That's all it does. It just stirs the waters up. It doesn't allow for peace. And they are not working for peace. They are working against peace. A prime situation is what I call SOS. Okay, Scarlet Oxfam SodaStream. All right, if you just remember it, Scarlet Oxfam SodaStream, SOS. It brought out a number of things, didn't it? It brought out the Palestinians actually want to work in Israeli settlements. Yeah, it brings out that Oxfam. I don't know if you saw the fabulous interview with Paxman and Birnbaum, the CEO of SodaStream, on television the other day. But he just exposed the whole attitude of the NGOs who aren't Congos against Israel. They're not actually for the Palestinians; they are against Israel. It's as simple as that. Then we have the academic boycotts. You probably heard the story about Professor Stephen Hawking, top scientist who can only talk because of an Israeli voice chip, who was invited to the President's Conference back in last summer, and eventually refused because of the boycott movement. They persuaded him not to. Academic boycotts are totally counterproductive because one thing that is needed is discussion. Talk is needed. The ability to discuss things, the ability to have opposing views and yet allow each other to talk. Dr. Lerman, Colonel Lerman mentioned Ismail Khaldi. Ismail Khaldi's first experience of speaking in Britain was at a university in Edinburgh, and he wasn't allowed to speak. Now you think if anyone was listenable to, it would be a Bedouin Muslim who's an Israeli diplomat, and he was shouted down and never got to speak. So that is the kind of attitude that is behind. I don't know, there's someone who's sitting in my room slightly to my right here who knows all about not being allowed to speak in meetings, don't you, Richard? Richard's a Jewish blogger, and he's so well known that he's been kicked out of some Palestinian solidarity meetings, almost just for being there. So there is no toleration of discussion and academic interchange at all. BDS is anti-Semitic in that it singles out Israel above every other situation. BDS does not achieve its aims. Its stated aims are to cause boycotts to happen, and they don't cause boycotts to happen. Okay, there's a famous case of Veolia, who probably take your dustbins away, who helped to build the light railway in Jerusalem, and my own organisation, in conjunction with UK Lawyers for Israel, produced a paper to show that in not one single case had their pressure on local councils succeeded in a boycott of Veolia because of Israel. You may remember that the SodaStream store in Brighton had their first anniversary a few weeks ago before Christmas, and there was a big day of action against SodaStream. All over the country, there were demonstrations of at least 3 people. Okay? They were outside, I think it was John Lewis in Oxford Street, looking very sorry for themselves. There was another one up somewhere in Manchester where they were looking even sorrier because it was raining. And in the meantime, down at the SodaStream store, the Sussex Friends of Israel were handing out bagels. Wonderful. Anyone from Sussex Friends of Israel here? I personally think in some areas BDS is kind of losing some of its support, but it is gaining traction in the church. You know, Mike's effort down at Greenbelt last summer, wasn't it? Just shows that the BDS groups are getting into the church, they're affecting people and influencing people. I'm running out of time very soon. There are Christian alternatives to BDS, which you can suggest to people that you meet. Okay, when you get in touch, you talk to people outside walls, outside churches, or outside meetings, or whatever it is. If we are Christians, we should be loving people on both sides of the divide. Yeah? And they should be talking to Jewish Christians as much as we should be talking to Palestinian Christians. And Christy does us a great service in coming over here and showing us what is going on in the Christian scene in the West Bank. The BDS people should, if they're Christians, should not be differentiating between the two sides. There is pain on both sides. We need to realise that and accept that. Second thing is that political peace is not in our power. I can't affect President Obama, much as I might wish to. I can't affect John Kerry. I can't affect Mahmoud Abbas. But I can encourage the Palestinian Army in Jerusalem. I can support efforts that encourage SodaStream in what it's doing and all that kind of thing. Grassroots peace, it's a favourite phrase of mine, grassroots peace is something that we as Christians should encourage because it's about people. The BDS movement does not care about individual people. It doesn't care about their individual situations. We do, because we're Christians. And so we can get next to the Palestinians we meet on our next trip to the Church of the Nativity. We can get next to the Jewish people that we met on our next trip in Jerusalem, because we are about people. BDS people need to turn round and see what the Palestinian leaders are doing. They make lots of accusations about Israel's leaders. It's time they turned round and addressed the corruption of the Palestinian Authority, the arresting of journalists, the torture of prisoners, the persecution of Christians, and so on. And that the BDS people could turn around and say, yeah, we support Palestinians, why are you persecuting your own people? But of course, all they're interested in is something else to hammer Israel around the head with. The Christian BDS supporters should separate from the secular BDS groups who are working on ungodly mindsets and have ungodly goals and activities. We should be, next time you see Christian Aid at an exhibition somewhere, they should not be working with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. They should not be working with all these little, big and little groups, which are totally secular and do not share the values of Christianity. Okay, we should be working within our value set, as it were, not tying ourselves together. And that's, if you looked at the list of organisations involved with this cardboard wall that was put up there, that there were people, some of whom have been accused of funding terrorists and blah, blah, blah. So you should tell the BDS people, if you're a friend of the Palestinians, why don't you befriend a few Jews as well, get their side of the story? See, if we are Christians, let's talk to both sides of the divide. And lastly, there are a lot of theological narratives involved, aren't there? You know, the Christian, one of the attractions that brings Christians towards the BDS and the boycott movement is the whole idea of replacement theology. That if God is no longer interested in Israel, well, okay, I don't need to be interested in Israel. If Israel is now no different to any other nation in God's eyes, then I can just treat them politically anyhow I want. So we need to understand and teach ourselves some of these narratives that are going on so that we can answer them, so that we can be firm in what we agree with and what we don't agree with, in order to be able to hold discussions with people. I was very interested when I came here to see the cardboard wall here before Christmas. All the people that were, I won't say guarding it, all the people that were handing out leaflets around it, they actually knew nothing about what was going on the ground. When you say, well, aren't you worried about the Syrian refugees? Aren't you worried about what's going on in Egypt? So, well, maybe next year. Well, I'll kind of come back next year and see what they're doing next year. And maybe they'll have another wall up. So, all these things are part of it. We could say, okay, BDS, yeah, okay, it's out there. I'm not boycotting Israel, so I'm okay. But it is coming into the church. Stand With Us material is wonderful. Empty the table when you go and give it to your vicar, give it to your minister, and use it, because facts are our weapon, aren't they? You know, as Christians, we believe in truth. We believe in the truth of the Bible, the truth of God's truth. And the facts of what is going on in Israel and the facts of the situation around boycotts are not against the biblical truth, are they? You don't sound too sure about that. So we need to know the facts and our Bibles. And then we can say, yeah, we can support what we believe about the Bible. The facts and the Bible go together. There is not a contradiction in terms there. So I'm going to be a very good speaker. I'm going to draw to a close there. Mike, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak.